Hi, my name is Naufia Mohammed. I'm speaking on behalf of Teachers Against Poverty. Today we are going to interview another teacher and her name is Nikita Jain. She is from India and she is teaching children who are underprivileged. We'll have a discussion with her and see how she is doing her part in eradicating educational poverty.
Hello friends, I am Nikita Jain and I teach at Rani Chayamma Sarvodaya Kanya Vidyalaya. I would like to announce that I have joined the Teachers Against Poverty movement. Our goal is to reduce and eradicate educational and child poverty. Our wish is that all children can live and study in peace. I invite my friends Isha, Pooja and Vani to join the movement. Teachers are together. Children should live in peace and comfort. Thank you.
Her name is Nikita Jain. She facilitates grade 5 children at a government school in Delhi, India. She is also an after-school teacher for children in grades 6, 7, 8, and 9, and she deals with SEL broadly there. She likes to call herself a historian.
Hi Nikita, welcome to Teachers Against Poverty and this talk show here.
Thank you.
How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Yeah, even I'm good. So my first question is it's about you. You should speak about yourself and your activities. Can you please tell about it?
Yeah, sure. So, I'm Nikita Jain, and I like to call myself a historian. That comes from my love from history. And currently, I'm a facilitator for grade 5 in a government school in Delhi, India. It's in a very, very small community called Jahangirpuri. Um, Besides that, I'm an after school special education learning teacher for grade 6, 7, 8, 9, where I look at subjects like visual arts, performing arts. So basically catering to social emotional needs of children for that age group. Apart from that, I'm pursuing my master's in education for my personal growth and development, and I work with different organizations. Teach for India being one of them.
Thank you. Now, you're teaching in this kind of low income settings, so you'll be facing a lot of challenges. Can you please elaborate on them?
Okay, yeah, so correct. Challenges are like multiple, and every day you wake up with a different challenge. But one specifically I like to talk about is the language barrier. For example, the community in which I teach, English is not even the second language, it comes third and fourth to most of the children. So that's like one of the huge barriers, and educational instructions are not really accommodative or inclusive of such languages which children are familiar with, and the languages which are spoken at their home are not such. So that's one key issue. And I'll also like to talk about the sanitation in the community. Due to that, it's not really well sanitized, and that's one reason why most of my children keep falling sick. And so these are the two major challenges that I wake up to every day, and really have to look towards new options and solutions on a daily basis.
So now it's very challenging, it's very difficult. At the same time, you would have felt it is rewarding also, right?
Yeah, so it's equally challenging and rewarding. So I would like to give a specific example. So earlier the children and the parents were, when I walked into the classroom, the pandemic was happening. So the schools were shut and there was no scope of them opening up either. So the classes used to happen online. So even the relationship building was pretty tough, be it with community, the parents, the school staff, or the children. So one major challenge that came at that time was the, okay, how does the future look like? The parents were very uncertain. Do we really need to send our children to school? How is gonna look like online? Because it was a very new setup, and again, these people are not very tech savvy, I would like to say. But what's equally rewarding now is their faith in me and the kind of love they bring. Okay, Didi, aap ho na, so we'll do it. Like the kind of faith they have ki, okay, so you are here, so we are just at content. The kind of trust they walk in with, okay, this is the teacher and she'll handle it, and the kind of love they bring in. So I'm like the family member to most of them. It's not like, okay, she is my child's teacher, she is my child's guru, something like that, but just like their own sister, just like their own daughter. So that's very rewarding, and that gives me a lot of hope when I, just walk into that classroom or the community.
Now, like a teacher is responsible to explain concept to their kids. How do you explain these concepts, like a new concept which is new to them? And how do you tackle that kind of challenge while you're teaching your kids?
So there are most of the concepts I faced a lot of issues in tackling with, and one of the major issue in this was a difference in learning level of children. For example, let's say we can make three buckets. There are children who are highly rigor, children who are at a medium rigor, and then there are children who are at a lower rigor, and also the parents are not very invested in the kind of activities we do at school. So it's very tough when you have to, like, you have a single class of 40 minutes and you have to look at children with special needs, and there's no one who can be ignored, right? It's not right on my part to do that. So different challenges, you have to wake up with different strategy every day, break down a very simple context into multiple layers and connect it to the child's life. For example, I would rather pick up a text which comes from their community to make it easier for them to understand, rather than taking out some imperial text initially, which is, for example, I cannot talk about fireplaces with my children. They live in a slum which is very hot, and in India we do not have fireplaces. So that's very colonial to them. So initially I'll talk about a local market, for example, and then maybe move to such generic or specific textbook kind things. So that's one thing I do. The second I do is multi-rigor planning. For example, dividing my class into three groups,
Okay.
making sure every child is learning something every day. And there's one very interesting thing we do that's called making portfolios. So the children are actually tracking their progress. It's not me, it's like it's not on me. So there's nothing like hierarchy. The children are then themselves responsible for their learning, and they give me feedback at the end. Okay, Didi, this is something you could have done differently, or this is an idea or an example which we really like, maybe more of it can work. So yeah, these are little tricks that work in help us tackling all this. And again, waking up to new tricks every day. You learn from your fellow teachers, you learn from YouTube, you learn from your children, most essentially, I believe.
So now, like becoming a teacher is difficult, and being a teacher is also difficult. It is a very challenging job. So, like, why did you decide to take up your career? Why did you decide to become a teacher? What was that inspiration?
So I'll not say it was my love for children that happened at a much later stage. So my school experience was just okay, and I really wanted um, to reimagine what a teacher looks like. For example, when I entered the classroom, I knew what kind of teacher I don't have to be. I used to talk to my cousins, and when I was teaching local tuitions, okay, how we need to have a voice. The idea of children having voice, and it's just very bombarding for me. I was reading a lot at the time. I was like, no, I don't want to go into marketing, which was my essentially core field. I really want to do something which gives me autonomy and gives me a chance to reimagine things every day. That's when teaching actually hit me, and I actually got myself enrolled into a bachelor's in education program. And I was not really convinced whether I'm doing the right thing when I got admitted into it 4 years back. But now, when I look at that, that was an adrenaline decision which I made because of too much reading and too much processing to do. I think that was one of the best decisions I've made for myself till date. And inspiration also came from a lot of icons I used to like watch about or read about. So they were not essentially school teachers, but teachers at some level, and a lot of them were school teachers as well. So I was like, yeah, this is something that really speaks to me. This is something I want to give a shot to.
Thank you. Now we have education officials in our country, and how well do you think an education official can help improve the current education system?
I think for education officials to like really improve the conditions, they have to be really present in the classroom and witness reality every day. I feel the policies are made outside the classroom in air conditioned rooms uh, by people who are not really walking into classrooms every day. So they are not really familiar, and the data is not really primary. So the policies are fine, but I believe the execution is where the problem happens. The ground check reality is where the major problems lie. So I wonder if one day these educational officials actually walk into the classroom for real in the core and the most affected areas to the most sparkling areas. Only then will the policies come out to be more authentic, and only then I believe a very strong implementation execution will happen. Unless and until the ones who are making the policies are far from classroom, um, the impact is also not very on point or very rigorous. That's a huge gap which I see and I feel happens. And yeah, I'm not really happy with the kind of policies that we have in the country and the kind of implementation that is.
That we have right now.
Yeah, the things I'm hopeful, but yeah, not really happy with the ones right now.
Now we have children in poverty, and we have other children also. How well, what is the difference between them, according to you?
So, if I start talking about differences, the list will never end. We can talk about opportunities, sanitation, health, access to future, whatever, every contemporary issue, you name it, and it has happened. But I'll keep it precise here. I'll give two examples. For example, I teach grade 10 children in a low income private school, and I teach grade 10 children in a very high tech private school with all the smart classes and best tuition facilities available. So the ones who like read in government school with very basic or very bare minimal electricity at home, very minimal support from the teachers in school, and poor health facilities are also reading the same syllabus. And the ones who are going to high tech tuition centers and one of the best schools in the country with parents who are also you know well read and all kind of opportunities and comfort at place will be giving the same board exam or metric exam as we say after grade 10, and then they'll be given a common merit. So I feel it's very unfair, and it makes the gap even wider when someone who starts the race here and someone who's starting it here are asked to reach a common touch point, and then their future opportunities and their future kindly depends on that. So that's the kinds of break my heart as well, the issue of merit in the country and the private and public school system. I really wonder how education would look like if there was a common school system, and when every child would have had equal opportunities, because it's not like the slight difference. The difference right now is huge. It's I don't know. I don't have the adjective for it right now. Maybe we cannot even fathom the kind of uh, difference and opportunities and access these children have.
You mean the
And
privileges, right?
yeah, the privileges, the everything, every privilege and every opportunity that we have, we cannot possibly imagine the difference in them. Again, unless and until we walk into a real classroom, we don't know that. And I don't know what's keeping our officials away from it. But yeah.
So now, you have been with your kids for quite a few, quite a long time. So, what was your most hopeful moment being with them?
Okay, so there were communal riots in my community. Not very long back. It's been like few months, and so the next day when people were shouting slogans and thirsty for blood, my children show up to the class in a very unsafe setup. I was not really happy about children being present that day because it was unsafe. One of my kids stand up and said, "Didi, I am here because I know if I'll study, I'll never be a part of any such protests or riots that happen." So
They
that gave
said it
me
on
a
their behalf, like it was
yeah,
voluntarily they said it.
yeah. So I just asked them very candidly, okay, child, why are you here? Matlab, it's burning outside. People are standing with knives, sort, and it's not safe for you to be present today. So the child said, I know, and we know if we are here today, we'll not be participating in any such thing tomorrow. So for them to understand that education is a key and it's a wheel for them to liberate themselves, for them to rationally think, was one of the most hopeful and rewarding moments. I was like, okay, I feel my purpose is met today. I feel I've done something really good because if children are able to rationalize um, the power of education and the um, power of whatever they do, and they have started believing in themselves. So that was the most hopeful day, and I'll forever remember it and cherish it because I think the mark has been left and they're on the right track.
Now, like we have a lot of educational injustice happening around, and I'm sure that you would have witnessed a few. So, like, what was your experience? Like, were you like whether you've been so frustrated at an incident?
Yeah. So there are times when I've been frustrated, like, oh my god, there's no hope left to it, and what's even the point of doing that? So that has been my frustration level at some point. So I'll share a particular incident. So, like I said, my community is very small and it's the outskirts. So there are huge landfills around the community, big landfills. So one day I was going on a community walk. We walk my children and parents. We then took the landfill route. The parents said, no, nobody goes that way. You don't need to. Our houses are the other way. Let's take a walk. Then I said, no, let's just go around and see. We walked around those landfills and I could see things that belonged to me lying there. And I was like, oh my god, what are my children living in? Why are they, what have they done? I mean, people who are living in that community are not elite consumers of the products which were lying there. Most of it was not even their consumption or their needs. But I was just so frustrated that okay, we as childs used to play in playgrounds which were beautifully done and things like that. But what have these children done to deserve a landfill as a playground which was burning with methane? And it's not possible for any human to like stand around there to be frank, to be candid. But they were playing there because this is something they were born with. This is an injustice they were born with. So I was like, oh my god, what have our actions done to humans? What, where is the result? Who's suffering from the wrong deeds we are doing? So that was one thing which really frustrated me because I thought a reflection of myself in that, to be honest, some of it is a part of me also, right? Even I have consumed these goods and I still continue doing, even though now I try to be very cautious about things I consume. But I was very sure that these people are not the ones who are responsible for the landfill they are living with. These people are
Yes.
not responsible for the kind of pollution they are living in. These people do not deserve the water that is polluted. That's totally an industry that's running not for them, but on, luxury brands and things like that. So just to see those children play there and to live with it and to accept it as given and not really protesting about it and being okay with it, really frustrated me to a core, uh, and it bothered me like for a really long time. How we as educated as we call ourselves do not even bother walking around the landfill areas, something which is a result of our actions. And then there are communities which are living by it, near it, and within it, and actually sustaining their livelihood from it. Really frustrated me.
So now, do you think this international community is paying enough attention to this subject, like education, poverty?
I don't think so. International or national communities are paying any heed to this topic. I think our major goal today as a world or as a country is just development, and a very specific type of development which is industrial to the core. And we have forgotten that development doesn't necessarily go without human intentions, conservation, exploitation, so much so that so many communities have been pushed to the fringes of below the poverty line. And I don't think any heed at all is being paid to child poverty or even poverty for that matter. Moreover, I believe the industries are focusing on making rich the richer and poor the poorer right now, with the kind of replacement with all the machinery, the kind of unemployment we see in the country, the kind of lack of opportunities that we see. The general global idea of development, I don't see education for child poverty. I don't see any big minister talking about it on a national or a global front, talking about education, talking about child poverty. Nothing like that sort's happening in those speeches. Nobody talks about them because, again, our idea of development has pushed behind the contemporary issues of child poverty, the kind of world we want our children to live in. It's moved beyond and it's scary to me. But yeah, again, I've never heard a speech made by any, high profile minister who talks about child poverty, talks about nature, who talks about humanity for that matter. We talk about is GDP and things that are related to that, things that are very superficial for me.
So now, you know your kids, like they are underprivileged. They were born like that. It is not, we can't blame them. So, how do you evaluate your kids' future with this education poverty still continuing like this?
Uh, it's a very hard-hitting question, to be honest. Like I said, I like to be hopeful. I really wish that my kids who have started believing in power of education actually make out of that community. I really wish for them to have better medical facilities, um, better opportunities for that matter, or a better chance maybe for a start. Because what I've seen is a lot of children do not even have the chance to participate or do not really have a chance to make their lives better, as we say. So, evaluating would be very difficult for me right now. But yeah, certain benchmarks or buckets we can say in terms of sanitation, in terms of health, in terms of opportunities for future. And I'm really certain that with them believing in education and with them believing in themselves first and the power they have within them, I see a bright light and I see hope for them.
So now you are a teacher and you're doing your part in eradicating this child poverty, education poverty. So, what do you think is the role of a teacher in eliminating this child poverty?
I think teachers have a huge role which they fail to see. The teachers I feel fail to acknowledge the kind of power they have. One of them could be just creating schools of care. If children belonging to especially such vulnerable communities uh, can do amazingly good if they are cared for, if they're just heard, and if they're just acknowledged, and if they're just treated as something special which they are, and also bridging the gap between where they are and where the opportunities are is something teachers can solely do with this, not solely, but yeah, with the help of parents, with the help of community, with the help of children. Teachers can actually bridge the gap which is wide and actually work on that. And also being there for their children is something they can do. When children have a hope, when we have hope in our children, children have that in us. Okay, if my teacher is here, maybe I can crack this exam. Okay, if my teacher is here, maybe I can take a walk out of my community. So just bridging the gap, creating schools of care, being there for your children, being outrightly present is something very strong. I believe it's enough to just show up sometimes, even though you do not have solutions. It's not necessary for us to have solutions every time, but what's very important is for us to show up as teachers, for us to own up to our uh, expectations and behaviors, and acknowledging every child and creating schools of care. I totally believe in the idea, and I'm really hopeful one day there'll be schools of care which actually mm, work on the core value of love and not just really academic benchmarks for children to start believing in themselves, and also bridging the gap which is very much required right now. As much as we love children, it's very essential to bridge the gap between where they are and where the opportunities lie for us to see material benefit, if we talk about.
Thank you so much. It was it was very good to have you here to talk with you. And now I know it's difficult. Things won't change so easily, but still, let's hope for the best for these kids, for them to
Yeah.
have a better opportunity, as you mentioned.
It was wonderful for me having a chat with you, and it's an honor for me, to be honest. And yes, I'm very hopeful for the future, and I do see the silver lining in the black cloud we live in. And yeah, I'm really sure one day one of my children will be sitting there and just talking about how it is possible. And yeah, I
Yeah,
totally
let it
believe.
happen like that. Not just one. We have a lot of kids like this, and
Oh,
being from the same country, I have seen people like this, but even I have not given enough attention into it. But now I feel that I should have done that.
there's hope, there's always hope, and there's always these little action of us which are doing intentionally or unintentionally that are helping children in certain way and giving them the power and hope it's somewhere latent in them. But yeah,
Anyway, thank you so much for your time.
thank you for having me.
Our wish is that one day, all children will study in complete freedom and peace and have good educational facilities. We close our eyes and think of a day when the competition between children in a field is equal.